Hello and welcome back to Red Bull LAN Orlando day number 2, and it's time for the second challenge of the day. I'm day 9.
And I'm DJ Weed, and Sean, I'm actually probably most excited for this challenge because it differs from the 3 that we've seen before then, where we've really focused on weaknesses or areas where we are trying to work on timings or wanting to transition. Now we get to focus on something a little bit different, which is here is a build that I think is great, and I want to refine it so that I can really use it in competition play.
And I almost feel like that this is one of the most basic things that really anyone who plays on the ladder at any level or even just does regular fun sparring games with their friend. You come up with the build, and now you need to test it. How do you do that? Well, variety.
Sure.
You're going to have your opponents throw as much variety at you as they can, and then what you're going to try to do is just identify the weak spots. It's all going to be focused on the opening. HasuObs has a really weird 4-gate with a weird zealot timing that goes into blink and observer, kind of some funky delay. It will likely throw the opponents off a bit, but most importantly, all HasuObs is trying to do is figure out where things go wrong.
Yeah. Additionally, HasuObs, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, where he's got a very, and there's nothing wrong with this, but a very standard and meticulous style of Protoss play. And even he has expressed the want to expand his horizon, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing to note about HasuObs is that he's very much so a pretty methodical player, pretty standard player. But most of all, he is a prolific tournament player. Like crazy prolific. He has over 700 tournament games under his belt. 700. That's multiple times a week.
Yeah.
He is having to sit down and actually perform. If you're performing that much, sure, you may be getting your mechanics good, getting some good micro opportunities, learning to play under pressure, but you're not getting to experiment. You don't want to try on a new build. You have to win right now. And some of the most traveled, experienced players have some of the most stagnation in their play.
No, I think that that's a great point, Sean, because when you consider the practice times, like things like this before an event, a boot camp, that really is going to be some of the best time that you're going to be able to refine what you're doing. In tournament play, even in early rounds, you're not going to want to say, hey, this might work. Let me try this out. I mean, you are playing to win. And in those situations, that can really lock you into a certain style of play, getting into those patterns. And, and you know, sometimes bad habits can form, or maybe you just, you know, always go with one particular strategy and you don't expand out.
So what we're going to do is we're going to sit down on the esports sofa and have a conversation with Hasu before he steps in to the grinder of his challenge where he's testing his new build. On the other hand, HasuObs might be someone that you haven't gotten the chance to learn that much about. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you to mousesports HasuObs.
Well, folks, we're here with our second focus player of day 2. It is mousesports HasuObs. Give it up for this guy. HasuObs, I'm actually really excited for this one because the challenge is a little bit different, right? It's not necessarily here's a weakness, I want to work on this, but it's more let's refine something that I've found that I kind of like. Can you explain a little bit more specifically maybe about the build or why you chose to kind of refine this one?
Yeah, there's this build on Europe from one of the Ukrainian Protoss players called Fryer from the team Roxkiss. And he's using this build in PvP pretty much all the time, pretty successful as well. And whenever I played him, I lost the best of 3. I lost 1-2 both times. So I felt overall this build seems to be pretty solid. And it's kind of unique because like the first steps to get to Blink and Robo are different from the like standard builds.
Right.
So I just want to test it against what it is good and where it's not so good, and probably when to expand and when to like push and try to kill your opponent. And I think that's pretty good possibility here because there are good Protosses. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So is this is specifically designed as a versus Protoss build, a PvP build, correct?
Yeah, indeed.
Okay.
I think it makes no sense against Terran or Zerg, especially against Zerg would be useless. So yeah, it's for PvP.
Okay. So I want to, something that Sean said earlier about your overall tournament games and the fact that you have just amassed a huge amount. And then in hearing your interview, you talk about how you're not like a fan of laddering too much. Do you think maybe by not laddering that you actually don't get exposed to like as much of the different stuff that gets thrown as a player? Or do you feel like you still get that experience even with those custom games that you're going after?
I do play a lot of online tournaments.
Right.
So I do get the experience against new stuff as well. And, well, in ladder, I sometimes do ladder, so I still get the new trends, I guess. And I'm watching GSL and other tournaments.
Right.
So from the, like, other programs I always learn, but just in ladder I feel there's not too much to learn. It's probably good to defend cheeses and maybe just for overall practice, being in the game. But to refine builds, I guess it's better to play custom games.
So talking a little bit about the refining of builds, is this Red Bull LAN Orlando is kind of specifically designed for you to be able to do just that. So far, you've gotten a chance to practice with not only the focus players, but also with a lot of the practice partners here. How's the experience been overall? Do you feel like you've already gotten some good games in, maybe some good communication with the other players?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Today I played some games with Morrow, and he shared some of his insights of the ZVP. That's always very helpful. And Torzen giving me some advice as well, just about the mechanics and how to play more efficient. So yeah, it helps. It definitely helps.
Great. So your first opponent's going to be versus Sase, but of all the Prodosses here, you know, what is your goal overall? Is it to actually just win every single game, or is it just more important that you really do understand if this build is, you know, right for you and what circumstances and situations you would want to use it or not?
I think for me it's more important to really understand the build and get the feeling for it, like to do the right decisions in the right moments. And so it's not too much about winning, it's just about learning and understanding this build. And Sasa, I didn't see him playing PvP for a while. I played him last MLG in Orlando, or like the last time when I played him was MLG, and I lost 1-2. So I think it's going to be interesting. I hope so, at least.
Well, I hope so too. Let me ask you one more question, HasuObs, and then we'll get ready. What is, in your opinion, the thing you dislike about PvP the most? I mean, is this one of the reasons why you're going for this build? I mean, just because you're not a fan of the matchup, or do you feel like what you've been doing has maybe been stagnant and you want to try new things? Like, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's actually the reason. I used to play 3-gate Robo pretty much all the time.
Right.
But players figured out how to play against it really efficient and how to exploit this build a little bit. Even though it's very solid, you can get a disadvantage by opening 3-gate Robo. So I felt I need to change something, so I started to play Blink, and especially this build, I just want to test it. And right now I feel that Blink is better than the Robo play on most of the maps, because you have more mobility, you get more map control, and you just have the opportunity to expand behind it or just go for the kill, while the Robo player, he either goes for one base Coloss all in or he expands. And yeah, you're going to figure out pretty much if he's going to go for one base Coloss, because he sits in his base and making Colossi, and then he moves out. So yeah, with Blink you just have more opportunities, I guess.
Awesome. All right, well, we're going to get started. Your first matchup is going to be versus Sase. Guys, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, mouz Sports HasuObs begins his challenge with a matchup versus Sase. Guys, don't go away. We'll be right back.